Okay, Restream is giving me activity. Okay, Restream is live. So I'm going to go ahead and close the Restream window so it doesn't use up bandwidth. And I will just introduce the topics of today and where we're at, and just get us kind of clear on what just happened. Wholeness and Balance Vibrations, everyone. Hold on, let me turn down the Golden Bridge music I think we may have playing. There we go. Wholeness and Balance Vibrations, everyone. So we temporarily lost the stream. However, we are back on point here with the Keymakers. What I've done is I've decreased the bandwidth of the stream, so that may mean that the audio will be great, but maybe the picture is a little pixelated. We will have a fresh, clean copy on this side in the studio that we'll upload later. That'll be high definition, but I feel like maybe we should try this now before we give up altogether in relation to streaming this and doing it. We also have another option to do it offline and then upload it later, but we do want to do it live because, of course, we need the questions. So I'm going to wait for just a quick moment for the stream to buffer and for me to get the confirmation from the pillars that are out there that everything is working properly. Here we are. And we just came off of a heavy question, a deep question, we'll say it that way. And these questions can be a bit open-ended because there's not really just one thing about things that are so potent and things that have such a deep meaning to our lives and affect us on such a deep level, especially with our children, our significant others, etc. And so what we're going to work to do is we're going to distill this a bit more into actionables, things that you should do right now. We're going to be aware that, hey, if we fire out all the solutions to you, and especially if you don't write them down, you're probably going to forget all of them. So we're just going to give you one thing that you can work with in relation to this, maybe a technique or an exercise that someone here has used in the experience themselves, and then we're going to give that to you so that way you can go on to your way. It may not just be one thing though, because there are 7 of us here, but we're going to work to do that. So the last question actually that we had, and let me see if someone can text to me inside of the question chat that everything is on point on that end, then I'll go ahead and continue. I currently don't see any wavering in the stream, but I do need a confirmation of that. Okay, so I actually have confirmation from my end just on what I'm seeing that it's all good. All right, so I get a confirmation from Monica also. Thank you. All right, so where we were before is we were answering the question, what is a suggestion for what is the suggestion for trying to help adult children heal from bitterness against parents that causes them to do things detrimental to themselves? And we had many suggestions here. And since the stream was kind of cut in the middle of the question, I am going to let those who feel like they have a distilled variant of what to do specifically in this situation right now come forth to summarize that question. And then we're going to move on to the next one.
I think that the importance of, I think, of my response really in answering that question is for all of us to understand that your emotions are yours, right? So anger, bitterness, all of that is you. That is within you, within your body, within your chemistry, your alchemistry, right? So whatever it is that's happened on your external to create this, right? When we're talking about all is self and all of that, but in reality, right, you feel it here. And so therefore it is your job, right? You are the only one who can make that, who can transmute that energy. Whether it's due to a parent or whatever it is we're speaking about. And so, of course, our parents are very delicate topics for all of us. And I think for me, my biggest turning point was recognizing my parents as adults, right? As adults, not taking them away from that parent role, really understanding as people, and then what they can do for me, right? I understood once I became a parent that I parented differently than my parents. And so my expectation, I had to understand that I can't hold that against them, right? That is their job, they did. And so my job is to be what it is I want to be as a parent to a child, to the children of the world. and take responsibility for how those energies reside in my body and transmuting that energetic. And so I hope we've got some of the key makers here have given some wonderful tips and tools on how to transmute and move that energy, right? And that is a daily practice for all of us.
So I have a daily practice for healing. You can call it healing the ancestral DNA, but this is a meditation. I think a popular meditation is the Ho'oponopono, if I say it correctly, meditation. And this is a meditation of forgiveness and healing. So there's the suggestion is to do it for 20 days straight. And what you're doing is basically going into yourself, asking for forgiveness. And it's 3 simple lines, of course. And the key in asking for forgiveness is, first, you can ask someone else for forgiveness, and go to the person and ask them for forgiveness. But the main thing is actually going to yourself and asking yourself for forgiveness until you really get to your inner core, and asking yourself for forgiveness. In the Ho'oponopono, the idea is like, why is this showing up in your life right now? Why are you facing this? Whatever issue, whatever the problem is, especially if it's dealing with a child or with a parent, and, why is that showing up? And if it shows up, you say, thank you for showing up and showing me this part of myself that I needed to heal. Whatever that issue is. Sometimes when we're dealing with issues, we don't want to be dealing with them, so we want it to go away. But why is it in your memory line? Why is it showing you something? And the repeating. Sometimes we repeat cycles and you're like, why? Then I faced this issue before. Why is it coming up again? Then I learned my lesson. Or you see someone else going through the same issue over and over, and you're like, they're knucklehead. How come they didn't learn? And realizing sometimes an issue, a problem, a situation needs to be learned from different levels, from different perceptions. That strand of hair is literally tangled within other hairs. I always look at my hair because it's like all tangled with, and these are the timelines. They're tangled within other hairs, but it's one strand. And that one strand you can have an issue 10 years ago, and it shows up 10 years later or 5 years later. It shows up with grandma, it shows up with mama, but it's that same strand, that same issue. So once you start to see that perception, once you start to see in that way, thank you. Please forgive me. I love you. First to the person, then to yourself, and then to the universe. Go ahead.
All right, so let's get some rapid fire happening here, and let's mix it up. Let's keep it jazzy. We're going to go to this next question, and again, it is a very open-ended question, but we're going to do everything that we can to come in with the beam of, this is what you need to do based on my experience. This is what worked for me, and that's what I got for you, so we can move through these questions. Also, if you are tuning in and you do have some questions today, you can actually phrase question before your question. You can ask it inside the chat. This is, of course, inside of YouTube. The chat should be running there on live now. And so I'm going to keep going. And the question is, how does one remain balanced and grounded being a wife? So this is specific, being a wife when your partner isn't necessarily on the same path, when they are still plugged into the matrix, basically.
That's a real question, and what I often do with my wife, and what I encourage other, partners and people that are working together to do, is read together. You have to, let's get a book. It don't necessarily have to be a deep spiritual book. Just get into the habit of reading together. And what that does is she or he may not be conscious in one area, but be highly conscious in another area. And when you learn to read together, it allows both of you to come to, like, when I read this is a conclusion that I came to. You get a chance to explore each other's perspective and why a person comes to the conclusion that they may go into, and then allow that person to introduce a book, and then you introduce a book. And that, what it does is, it's not a thing where I'm forcing my partner into my way of thinking, but more so we get a chance to explore each other's, internal worlds, internal perspectives, external perspectives, and then challenge each other by thinking a little deeper, thinking a little, let's explore something esoteric. Let's explore something, let's go deeper. And when we did that with certain couples, and even with my own family, with my wife, I found that was a lot more helpful, because it was for me and her to explore that we understand things differently. I come from the North, she's from the South. The way we see the world may be different, but when we get a chance to take one sentence and explore it together, both of us are able to now digest that and come to each other's conclusion. I realized, like, wow, she may not be high in this space, but she's surpassed me in this area. And that's what I need for my development, for my growth. So I would say, instead of looking at a person like, that person is conscious, this person's not conscious, what is that person's strength? How do we identify that person's strength? Exhort that, take it out. Let's play with that. Let's explore that deeper, and then begin to get into more open dialogue. So reading together, I feel there's a very strong centralized point for couples.
I think that's very powerful and also very concise. In fact, I would urge all the key makers to know we actually all don't have to answer a question, especially if it gets so clear, and then maybe we fog it up a little bit for a person's mind if they have to think about too much. But because I believe that a lot of times, especially in relationships, sometimes when you're asking that question, you just want to hear from the person and leave them. To be honest, it's like, what should I do about this relationship? And they just want to tell me I should leave them so I can already know what I wanted to do anyway, right? And that's really what they're asking, because 9 times out of 10, if you're asking about a person, they're still in your life, and maybe you have an issue with them, there's some reason why you can't leave them. Maybe there's some children, maybe there's a financial situation, something is happening that's actually keeping you there. So that's kind of common sense. So since you are not deciding to leave, our brother Life, what he's saying is that now you're agreeing to stay. So you need to find some real terms here of why you're back in. You're really seeing now why you want to be with this person. So if you're going to be there, you're going to hate them all the time, and it's not going to work, but you can't leave. You have no solution. So coming back in again and actually saying, okay, well, what is it that? Where's your strength? Where's your strength? Where my weakness, or where are my weaknesses? Because that's how we fit in together. And also remembering to remind yourself that if you have someone that is just like you, you're not going to like them either. Some of us believe that we want somebody that does the same thing as us. Actually, you're gonna not like them more. They're gonna be challenging you, telling you how to do it better than what you're doing. They're gonna be all in your lane. Everything is gonna be going on like that. Contrary to, you may think that that's gonna be somebody that complements what you do. Oh, I want somebody that wants to be, saving the world with me. And then you end up with somebody that says, hey, the world's fine the way it is. Why would that be? And it's because the yin has to match with the yang. And then when you look, you'll see so many areas where this being is nourishing you, and then after that, it's about working on that communication. And this is what Life is saying: get in there and start to work on activities that get you two into communicating, and where you're not bringing in that conflict, and this is what you're not doing, and then sparking off and triggering those same things again. We're going to keep moving through these questions since they are piling up here. Also, for those that are dropping questions in, just remember that we are here to answer questions related to direct aspects of what's happening and to life on a serious level. These are serious times that we're in. So we're predominantly addressing questions that really have a context that we feel that that those that are out there on this vibration spectrum and frequency need some clarity on. So the next question here is, can energy, the very essence of humanity, ever be trapped, held, or bound to this realm by certain occult magic via CERN, technology, and all sorts? Or does personal desire and choice override this? Okay, so that's your question, key makers. Okay, I didn't say y'all had to be completely quiet. I just.
Well, I guess
Does that sound like one of those Sevan Bomar questions? Like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
100%.
It's like you throw him out there. I mean, I think everybody here wants to say the same thing, whether they're going to say it or not. That may be another thing. But of course, that has a lot to do with the potential of your own willpower. Because once you start stacking it on yourself and telling yourself exactly what's hindering you from doing anything, it will hold true that that is exactly how it works. But also to believe that you could just move everything out of the way, like you could just, not eat for 1,000 days and survive. Like there are some real rules and boundaries there that, you should also use wisdom in knowing, right? So in this case, use wisdom in knowing. If you're seeing yourself in a certain situation and you feel like it's mental and you're like telling yourself all these different things, well, that's never going to benefit you in the first place. But if you also see yourself rejecting the obvious truth, it's like putting your hand into a fire, like, wow, this fire is going to burn me, no matter how much I believe at times that it's not. Because also deal with the law of averages. Like you may be just that one person in 1 billion, but do you really want to play those odds? Because if you're looking to manifest something, then you're looking for like a probability of manifestation. So in this case, what I'm saying is, if you are around certain kind of technologies and certain kind of things that directly hamper spiritual growth, which is kind of common sense, then to remove yourself out of that space. Like if there's a disco upstairs and they're always partying, the music's blaring loud, that this is going to be tough to meditate, especially to start with the meditation in a place like this. So we're using common sense. But to say that there's this frequency net over the entire planet and these alien grays are running it, and then they have this chief overlord and he wants to do this, and then now you're going off into this tangent, and that's the reason why you feel like you are not progressing, or that humanity as a whole is not progressing. Well, you've put something on you that you can't even change. So what I would say is that our ancestors, the beings who put us into this space, put us here at this time. Like I can't tell you 100 years ago. I can't tell you in somebody else's life. I can only speak personally from my experience. They've put us in a time to where if we find something hindering ourselves, we can accumulate the level of self-worth, self-belief, self-awareness that will move us from that space. This is a big world. It works on frequencies. So when we change our frequency from wanting to accept certain things, we move into the frequency where those things don't exist. So that's as much as I'll answer on the question, because it could again stem to anything about what we're be afraid of, and occult magic and spells and binding. And all these things are absolutely real. But what is more real than that is what we believe personally is having an effect on us, and what we do in wisdom to actually prevent things that we know are real from having an effect on us. Right. So just being very straightforward with that question. The next question here is, what are your thoughts on burials versus cremation? What should we do with a physical body once a person has transitions? Do we connect with or through those physical bodies once we depart? I think that's an excellent question. Keymakers, you got something on that? What's your personal preference? Like, because I actually think I've been thinking about, this in the future.
No.
What are they going to do with you?
I would just simply go with what is in the Vedic culture, naturally coming from that ancestral background. And it's always been a cremation, because you are burning up the entire corpse, and it's also part of the letting go process. It's a very hygienic process. And everything in the Vedic culture is based on ahimsa, non-violence. So you're not putting a dead corpse into the earth that other insects and animals are then going to eat, which is causing ahimsa to them. And then that earth is going to be used to grow something else on. And so it's just a very clean process of burning the corpse and letting go. So that's my take on it. I'll keep it short.
Yes, that's so beautiful. I was going to say this too, is that there's also an option too. They have this
or you can be buried like in a pot to be
Yeah, but
used to
nobody can
plant.
afford that though. Nobody.
Oh, I know.
That was my next one too. Of course, I would love to be a tree, but I think that was a little expensive. I don't think the family's going. You need to have land and everything. I just don't want to be a tree in New York. You know what I mean? Like they just put me down. But for sure, pod
All the dogs
burial, I
walking
think
by.
is going to rank at least number one up in here. But I just, I have my questions. What else you got, Paige? If no pod, what do you want them to do with it?
Sister Niva said it perfectly. Then we just gonna have to, cremate it.
Do whatever you can afford.
Yeah,
No.
whatever you can afford.
Yeah,
Personal
I wrote
preference
something
as
about
well,
this,
down to what the person feels called to, if that means scattering the ashes in the sea or on a bench that they've spent their whole life, or maybe not the whole life, but these places that carry vibrational resonance with that person. You don't necessarily need to go to a site to feel that connection to that being, because that being's everywhere. That being's inside of you. That vibration's inside of you. But if that person's wish is to leave that kind of streak across the earth as they leave in a particular way, then I think it's important to honor that person. But if it's your choice and you're doing it for somebody else, again, this is what this platform opens up, with everyone sharing their I haven't made my choice on that one yet.
Clearly.
So
And not to mention when you do leave, do you really have the choice? It's like if they decide, well, that one's 5,000 and that one's 8,000. This is not hard. He didn't leave any money. But yeah, definitely an interesting question. I guess some are asking, does it matter edgewise? Whether they cremate you, whether they, the latest one when I saw that, I was like, okay, that may be something I want to do. Is they made like a sarcophagus of some type and they dropped it into the ocean, and then the person is now in the bottom of the ocean. You're super wealthy though, so you got to pay for all that. But just another way to go. Like, and does it really matter? I guess we'll find out, won't we? It's like, later on in life, like afterlife, you'd be like, yo, you did that cremation, didn't you? No, I'm joking. So anyway, I guess that, just to break the ice in today. And also remember that, comedy is one of the best conduits of transferring the frequencies and breaking things into still bite-sized morsels of our awareness in this time that we're in, to not get too serious about the creation, but to also be on point with the choices that we're making. The next question here is: a family member was killed tragically, and I'm trying to deal with this while also honoring him. Any advice for spiritual and physical practices?
Man, this is I can give some physical advice. That's when you lose someone, that's heavy, and a lot of the youth that I work with who end up losing a loved one, we do the practice of, writing everything you have ever wanted to say to that person, either put in a balloon, put in a bottle. If you're in a balloon, we take this walk up the mountain and let the balloon go, and hopefully to release everything with that person. And if you don't have access to a mountain around you, putting something out into the river, just so you can. Reality is you're never going to really let go of that pain. It's always going to be there because that loved one is still connected. When I lost my father, it was something I held inside. Like I didn't cry or anything. And it was just kind of like, I have to be tough for my brothers. I have to be tough for everybody else around me. And when it did come out, it just came out to me when I was driving and I had to pull over, and I was just, letting it go. And from there, I wanted to just explore the idea of the dream world and how this can be a space that I can actually begin to have those deeper level of conversations with my father, with my loved ones in that space. So I just began to do some work into looking into that dream state as a way for that connection. And then several times I've connected with my father in that state, but that don't mean that that's the ultimate solution. That was just something that I've done for helping with my healing. But with a lot of the youth, I just encourage them to figure out ways to let go a lot of that anger, because when a loved one leave and there's that anger or there's that love or there's something associated with it, the person just holds on to it. And the longer you hold something, the heavier it becomes. And they just begin to weigh them down. So I just encourage them to find a way to release it through the balloon ceremonies or through, sending things up the river.
Also, I would like to add to that too. Guys, also, it's another video you should take a look at. Is Sevan, he put up a video on the Charleston shooting, but in the video, he doesn't really talk about the shooting itself. Basically, like he was talking about, there was an excerpt of him talking about the reason as to why you can't reach ancestors because you're not tapped into the frequency or the certain color or the spectrum. And so when you go into that frequency, whatever it may be, and for me, it was like the heart space, the heart chakra space, dealing with loss and grief, you'll be able to communicate with that person that just transitioned. And so that helped me greatly with my grandmother. And I kept having all these different dreams, like you said, Brother Life, just connecting with them in that space. And it's still going on, even after these 2 years of knowing and that they're always giving gifts to me in that space that I wouldn't be able to get here. And so it's just a whole nother ball game when you're dealing with that. You know what I mean? The spiritual realm versus just the physical. Oh, we don't have them here physically and they left us tragically, but they're still alive and well in another space. We just have to dial in and tap in. So that's another video that I would encourage you all to take a look at too.
I find that writing helps a lot and journaling helps a lot. And when I've had clients who've lost loved ones, I've asked them to simply write a letter to their loved ones. And it's often in the act of writing when the motor skills of the hand is connecting with the brain, you can actually often say a lot more than you can say in words or in a meditation or in an ancestral ceremony or anything. And you're actually putting all your emotions down into that piece of paper. And then you can even burn that piece of paper in the time of a full moon or make a personal ritual for yourself or even keep it. I've kept letters that I've written to my father when we lost him in 2011, and just lovely things that I'm writing to him about, of things that have happened in my life since he passed away, which I could share with him, and it's just a personal journal that I keep. So that's a very nice way of having a completion process with your loved ones.
Also, it depends on your own spiritual practice, in meditation to, like Paige was saying, to dial into that frequency. If you have anything that reminds you or that the person owned, you can talk to them and in your meditation and ask them where they are at. Maybe they come to your mind because, there's a line there that's calling to you. So paying attention to that. And, I personally, believe that if an ancestor is here with us, so you have direct communication with them, and you can change the narrative in your own memory of whatever happens. So you can go back in and ask them and guide them. I believe that in the physical realm, we're just as powerful as we are in the spiritual realm. So things that you do here will reflect there. So if someone died violently, guide them, talk to them to be at peace, and, the same way that the spiritual realm will be helping you, you can help, anyone there. And for close family members, sometimes you might be that beacon, especially for those of us who, quote unquote, awaken earlier than others, guide them and guide them to home, basically.
That's beautiful. We're going to activate rapid fire session. We have 15 minutes to get to 300 questions, and we'll start now. No, but serious, we do have the questions lining up, and all these responses amazing and beautiful. And I think we'll be at the hour and a half mark, so we'll give it about to the top of the hour. So we got about 15 minutes. Let's see You know, just how dynamic we can really get. And these questions are not, you know, they're not gonna lighten up either. This next one is, what is the best way to bring balance to procrastination and avoidance? I'll say that again. What is the best way to bring balance to procrastination and avoidance? So this is the retreating away from you know, the responsibilities.
So this is what I've found regarding procrastination, which is funny because I do a lot, but I've seen myself procrastinate. Sometimes you're not ready for the, you know, the beautiful idea that's like genius. So you need, procrastination is like a marination, you know. So just tell yourself while you're procrastinating, this is my time that I'm thinking, you know. So not everything needs to be negative, like in terms. So when you're doing nothing, your brain might be thinking. So
yeah, I just write it down. I write down and I put the list down in the morning and I look at it, and the objective is to try to at least complete 80% of that before the day is out. And if I'm not able to, I don't like, you know, whip myself or punish myself. I'm just going to see if I can get at it tomorrow and try to use your partner or somebody else to hold you accountable.
Yeah. I know what's worked for myself and for my clients is finding what that North Star is. Like, what is that thing that is driving them to want to do that? Like, you've got to be incentivized within yourself to move to a higher potential. Like, you've got to turn that inertia into a force that you're like, I'm so excited to go and do this thing because when I do that, it's going to give me this experience. But if you're not really that, like, it goes back to not necessarily motivation, but this internal drive to get it done. If you don't have that drive and that's not clear for you, then you're just going to be kind of skating around. That's what I would say.
I like that. I like that a lot, what Alistair is saying, because it really highlights that when you're procrastinating about doing something, it means you don't want to do it anyway. And so what has a tendency to happen is, especially if people ask you to do things and then you say, okay, I'm going to do it, but you already know that's not even what you like to do. Now you've added to the pile of things that is preventing you from even doing the things that you want to do, right? And then you just get into this procrastination phase. So I think that he's hitting something very important, that you know, you can put brakes on it by from here on not agreeing to anything that you don't feel passionate about doing. So that way you can start clearing the queue. So that way you start seeing visually what it is that I want to do. And as Life, I believe, was saying, to get these notes happening, because a lot of times procrastination is because when someone asks you or you're going out to do something big, well, it's big stuff. It's not a 1-day thing, a 2-hour thing, and you're done. And again, if you have a lot of things going on and you're even a thinker, this means that your mind knows how many different steps it's going to take to get things done. So finding common interests in things, eliminating everything else, and stop taking on more and more unrelated things. You can do that you know are not really motivating you to do it, and you know it's going to be a repeat from you. I think that that's a huge insight to getting rid of procrastination. This was a 2-part question. The second part was also, how can one find balance with people on things they can't seem to find a common ground with? And I think we kind of answered that question earlier, because that's still a relationship. If anybody wanted to finalize on just the procrastination or anything that was added after that, but that does tie into what we talked about relationship and using other methods to find common ground.
And what are you doing, you know, to give you your highest joy and excitement in any situation? And it could be the smallest things in life, like even making a cup of tea. Which mug am I going to use? Which tea bag am I going to put in? Which flavor tea bag? It's the small things. How am I moving into excitement in life in every single eternal now moment? It doesn't have to be like, am I going to produce an amazing painting right now? What am I going to do? Am I going to draw? Am I going to paint? Am I going to have a cup of, like, moving from moment to moment to moment in existence in your joy of things that give you joy, because that means you're being authentic to yourself, and only being authentic to self can you reflect that to others.
Awesome. All right, so we're going to keep going through these questions. This next question is, are there benefits to ADHD? I know, Life, you see a lot of this in dealing with the youth, and you know, whether we want to categorize it into a subset of dysfunctional, I don't think that that's necessarily the case, but how would you answer that question?
It's a difficult one because a lot of time the ADHD or ADD, you know, they have a lot of very negative connotations to it, and sometimes people, you know, your mind is running so fast in so many different directions, and then you self-diagnose and say, I think I got ADHD. And oftentimes it's just saying, okay, how do I slow down and begin to focus in one area? When I run to a lot of youth who are very active, I take them outside. Let's go outside. Let's run. Let's engage. Instead of sitting down in an office with them or sitting down in a house, let's go walk around the neighborhood. We do whatever sessions we do in other spaces that just allow them to air, space, ecotherapy, get in nature. So as far as if there is the benefit, it just means you have a lot of energy and, exercise, box, whatever physical activities you can do, find ways to engage it. But the idea becomes to try to create some type of boundaries around some aspect of structure in where you can actually see an end to what it is that you do. So depending on what you want to use it for, if you're saying I got ADHD and I want to sit down and meditate for 24 hours a day, good luck. You know what I mean? I don't, but if you want to just go outside and find ways to engage, and it's first of all, our parents, that our grandparents have ADHD, you just take them outside, let them run, let them engage, let a person just get back in tune with what's going on outside of them. So there's no one particular answer to that, but I just try to incorporate like more outdoor activities when I engage with those kind of youth.
And I help them to find what their and I help them to find what their calling is, like what their passion is, again, what their joy is, because each of us has a unique calling in life. Someone may want to read, someone may want to paint, someone may want to go for a run, and things like that. So actually sitting with them, being present with them, and going through, finding out what is their calling in life. And that can change as well, because something like ADHDs, they're actually going through multi-dimensional levels of self. They're actually exhibiting the multidimensionality of self. So it's, yeah.
And this speaks to, I think, the problems, if you will, that arise whenever we have a diagnosis, right? Like Life was speaking about, and Niva, that, ADHD, what does that really mean? And we've come up with these diagnoses to mean out of the normal, right? Or there's some type of behavior that we're recognizing that we don't quite understand yet. So we're going to label it like autism and some of these other things. And now we say, well, you're on the spectrum of things, right? So I think we can do ourselves a misservice by living underneath a diagnosis, right? You are not your diagnosis. You are not your file of doctors, laboratory tests, right? So I think with anything, these are your body dynamics, right? And I am just dying to talk about eniology, Sevan, because I think that the relationship questions, the procrastination questions, right? All of these about finding your motivations and what's really serving you. These tools like the eniology can really, really help us in finding the things that really fuel ourselves, right?
That's an interesting insight there also, Joy. And, I do pardon me for not bolting on eniology into this conversation. Maybe when we come back next week on Keymakers, we realize also it'd be great if we had 9 of us, since there's kind of like 2 slots down here that are open. And maybe we can also work to see solutions based on the lens of the personality. And then that way, those that are listening can actually see the perspective in which we're coming from. And if you don't agree with the perspective, you can also see why the one who's bringing that perspective would see things that way. That's always very important in communication. The next question was actually an eniology question. It was, which number should I follow in my path, my psychic number or my life path number? I'm puzzling things out at the moment, and I'm trying to focus on goals and lives around one number. And I'll just answer that very briefly, because there's another question right after this. And again, these are great questions that spark another dynamic way for us to come in on Keymakers and use something a bit more intrinsic to really, start that process of giving a step by step, right? Like a guideline to for you how this would work for you, because when we're speaking generally, we're kind of assuming that everybody is like us, which that is of course incorrect. So we do our best to give some universal solutions, but Eniology does one better because it gives you a direct deep dive into you, and then many things that you may have thought are issues and problems are actually the benefits, and then other things that you thought were your strengths are actually what's throwing you off. And it's good to have something that is going to be able to truthfully give you that kind of bearing. And so to answer this question about what number you really are, what we've done, and it actually got complete today. This is the great thing. As I said earlier this week, we're complete with many parts of Eniology, especially with running certain types of analysis. And that's where we kind of finalized that's where we're finalizing things before we can bring it into the public and out of beta. But one of these questionnaires, it's about 81 questions, and it asks you questions that are related to specific paths, but you don't know what paths. And after you're done answering all these questions, then this, in this case, a bot will just say, you have more traits from this path. And the reason why we felt like this was very instrumental, because we noticed that many people, when we calculate your path, and we do that by just adding up the day that you were born on. So I'm born on the 22nd, so I'm path number 4. So some may not exhibit the traits of their path anymore. And we had to come to terms with why this is the case, while still not trying to remove our system, but also really foolproofing it and making sure we debunked it the proper way, because we're more interested in, is it really working, than somebody else that may be coming in to use it. And so what we were able to resolve is that there's a path that you're born on, your cosmic path, and that is set by the day that you're born on. However, through your experience, just like also in human design, you actually have these impressions. It could be your mother, it could be your father, it could be a close friend, it could be a job, anything that you engage with a lot and spend a lot of time with. And this could kind of overshadow what is your original cosmic path. So we felt that this was great information to learn, because with a simple test, we can kind of gauge where you are. Okay, well, you're really a number 1, but you're out here on a number 9 path. And then get you to start communicating in the path that you're in. Okay, here's some information about the number 9, and this is how they see the world. And then start the process of walking you back to your original path, the path that you were actually born on. Now, deep down there, you can start seeing some of the similarities and where this is coming from. But then our ultimate goal is always to expand you into all the paths and beyond. So this is not like a pigeonhole, like this is who you are, this is who you'll always be, nothing's ever going to change. It's actually to get you to start in one place to master something, because then you'll start seeing the commonalities between all paths, and then you can unlock a grand aspect of self. So there is a desire, if you have a desire to work on basically whatever is the most prime in your life right now, next week, at least towards the end of next week, we'll already have those bots ready to at least run that questionnaire. And so you can give it a shot and actually see what path it is that the energy that you're giving off right now is coming from. And that may be instrumental and more of an assistant. This second question actually now is that, or I don't think we're on the second question, but this next question is, these times have been seriously questioning our economies. How do you envision the brightest future for humanity in terms of economic structure? What will that look like?
So I can add to this. So I just did a live stream last night on cryptocurrency, a crypto expert on the channel. And we were talking a whole lot about how the U.S., just to making sure the U.S. just created their own digital currency. It's just so much going on with that. And I would encourage others to, just diversify your money and to really look and consider a whole nother alternative where you can become your own bank. You know what I mean? Where you can do things that you normally wouldn't be able to do in this economy. And as times are changing, you have to change with it. You know what I mean? And so, but be structured on a foundation with it. Don't go put all your savings and everything into something and you don't even know what you're doing with it. Study it, figure it out, and just do your research on it. But you're guided. You have, all the resources that you need. There's so many things also on YouTube that are free. There are people who just give out so much free knowledge and information. And even what this brother is doing with Wealthy Bot, the crypto stuff and ambassadors training, all that information. Like, look at that stuff and really hone in on that stuff and study this, you know? So, you know, that's what I got to say on that. It's not a time to be really afraid about it, but really capitalize on that, and also capitalize on yourself. You are the money. You're everything. So you can make a living for yourself, you know, and come into a term where you don't have to worry about if the economy is shaky. Are you shaky? Are you unstable? That's the conversation that needs to be had. So I just want to say that and give my 2 cents on that.
That's beautiful. And also remembering the key principles to the financial aspects of how our energy exists. I believe that we're actually phasing out a huge way of how we've been dealing with our currency. With it's an aspect of, let me get this money and hold it somewhere and secure myself with it. And this is like been going on for thousands of years. And I think that that's actually at the core of where the energy wants to go now, and what it will really create, how wealth would be really created in these new times of ether that we're actually in. And it would be predominantly about also seeing that when you're getting, let's say, finances in, that you're investing those finances in things that are actually going to help other people. This is like the biggest mysterious aspect. Generally, it always goes in one direction. Am I making more money? Have I made a good investment? Am I accruing more money? And then there's never really a consideration of, am I also taking this money and planting seeds, or actually investing in others' growth and the benefit of creating something that's going to benefit others from this money? Because when you do that, you actually lock into really the mysteries of big businesses. Like, they know that they have WhatsApp for free because there's a lot of people that are going to be there because everybody wants something for free. And then when they have a lot of people there, then it's actually the amount of people that actually equates to money. That's what we saw in cryptocurrency, that when like Tron was giving out free cryptocurrency and they had all the Indians there, they had all the people in the unbanked areas as a part of their cryptocurrency. They, once the chart started really turning up, they went all the way to the moon, and many others that were with them went, that were also financially challenged. And that all started from the concept of that money is actually not real. It's numbers are really the people that are involved. And to shift your mind, like, entrepreneurs will all have a hard time doing this because it's an entrepreneur that has been working on a capitalistic framework. And it's very difficult to shift one's mind into giving versus receiving, and actually being able to dispense what you're getting as far as your current, as far as in investing yourself. That's another thing, that we can often invest in others' ideas, especially if we do have some financial aspects to ourselves, some currency that's been built up. And then we'll be looking for ideas or things that we can invest in. Invest in yourself. Know the time that we're actually living in right now. You see how everything is coming on outlet that's being open right now. As Paige said, diversify, like, get out there a little bit more. That's going to help you. And you can now go international with these kind of banking structures. Also with the digital dollar, it's kind of clear too, because, you know, being in cryptocurrency so long, seeing just the plays on things and how the charts are affected by that, and how that's even purposefully done, that we can still count on that this digital dollar would be behind the walls of cryptocurrency, meaning not going into what you see on Coinbase, but actually still functioning in the blockchain, which we saw even on, I think that was the Mandalorian series that they just came out with, where you see several references to a chain code, and that the chain code is basically determining your stance with the government, your financial stance, all of these different things. If you've committed crimes before, all this being on your, what's called the chain code. And so if you don't want to participate in that kind of thing, if that's a part of the horizon, meaning that this digital dollar and the dispensary of this support like UBI that needs to come to all the people who actually don't have a job right now. These are real things happening, not conspiracy. Starting to realize that even if physical currency was flooded to everybody, there's not actually enough printed money to give everyone the stimulus check. So it would have to be like a EBT card, where the money would be actually held within a government account, and you would be given a card or a chain code or whatever you want to call it to access that money. And the reason for that would be is that if everyone kept going in the direction that they're going right now, as far as if I get some money, then I'm going to go buy up all of this supply, they would need to be able to regulate, well, you only can buy 3 rolls of toilet tissue with this. You only can buy $200 worth of groceries. You only can buy, and that is, of course, how EBT or the food stamp cards are regulated even now. You cannot buy certain things with those cards. So with this in mind, it lets you see that as a mature person that is into economics in a very mature, stable stance, you're going to see all this emerging. As we talked about before, you kind of feel like there's an allies versus axis thing going on with the banking system, and reaching out to family members, tribe members, etc., that are also in other countries, Europe, other places where the banking systems are different, and then beginning to start this collaborative aspect of looking at where's the best place to put money and what's the best thing to do with it. As someone mentioned here, we do have something coming. It's very dynamic. I'm not going to really talk about it now just because I want the energy really, to stay open, because it's working, it's done. And we have, like I said, about 1 more week until we're able to introduce it. We're already building landing pages, but it does involve basically making money without doing anything, as crazy as that sounds. And it's trustless, meaning that you don't have to gamble and say, hope this works. You get a chance to run a simulator like you had real money in there, and then it'll show you how much money it would have made before you put any money into it. I think, again, that is revolutionary, but it also lets me know that if we have it, somebody else also has it. And then it kind of gives me an awareness of how fast, also not fast like crazy, but fast not like lazy. That's a new one. Not fast like crazy, but fast like not lazy. How we need to actually realize how to turn resources from cash resources from cash or fiat into something else, which I think is going to be something that's not necessarily considered when you just don't have any money. But then you can already start dealing with a stigma that many will face once they start getting any form of current, which is like, well, let me build this up to at least 50,000, at least 100,000, or 150,000, and then I'll start thinking about buying something. And really, you need to be thinking about right now where I put my mind at, to be honest, and I don't want to give everyone a doomsday fear factor way of mindset, but this is how I think. What do I have that somebody would want to trade me food for? That's how I really am going at this. So it ain't going to be, these kind of conversations of beautiful spirituality. I don't think nobody's going to give me a sandwich for that. Maybe. But technically, no, you're going to need to have something. And so the world in its selling of skills, and we talked about this before, where skills, you can get paid for skills. You can get paid for talking. You can get paid to give someone an analysis. That seems to be still in a little bit of question. We have time though. So right now you see a lot of people are coming online. They're offering online services. Generally, that's some type of skill. It's very difficult for somebody to beam something physical to you on the internet. So we see that is working. But I can foresee a time where people will want more actual value out of what it is that they're getting, something physical from someone, if they're going to be able to exchange to them things that actually have value. And so when you start thinking about that, you return to your original essence, which is actually crops. Crops are our original value. And we're not always talking about carrots all the time. There are many cash crops, if you may, that are actually out there. And also if you work with herbs and those kind of things. So this is where you're more of now realizing that nature is still the original banking. The companies that are always going to be on top and have always been very proficient at keeping their finances together have things like huge coconut farms where they're selling the hulls, they're making charcoal out of that, they're making milk out of this, they're making water out of this, filters out of this. And just realizing for yourself that when you start meditating on stuff like that, you come up with answers and solutions. It'll seem like a challenge at first. What can I do that somebody would actually want to give me food for? And then as you sit intelligent, you'll actually start to come up with things that, I could do that. And then this will start to actually allow you to tackle some of the more smaller situations about what should you do now to diversify your financial portfolio. So that's what I want to give towards that, because there is a lot emerging, of course, and there is some questions about the economy, but that's the full spectrum of it. And then realizing, again, that if you can reach out to someone internationally, maybe you got friends in China, let me throw something over there. I'll send it to your PayPal. Now you got some yuans over there. and, you know, just really starting to get yourself familiar. Not so much as that you're going to just be a millionaire all of a sudden because you put the money in the right place all the time, but that you're getting yourself out of this stagnancy of letting someone else become responsible for how you're going to be eating and how your money is going to be flowing. The next question here also, since that was really a direct kind of crypto question, and we're actually going to be done here in about 5 minutes. So let's see, about 5-10 minutes. So let's see what we got with this question is, how do I get back on the money horse? Okay, so I guess we just kind of talked about that. So, you know, we'll speak on this a little bit later on this week. The next question is, how do you shield yourself from black magic and occult practices inflicted by family? Anybody think they can give a concise give a concise awareness of solving these kind of situations? Lots of sage and Palo Santo. Next question is no, no, we're not gonna leave you hanging like that. Just remember, there's a
Well,
360 that works with something like this.
In a way, it sounds like the bitterness question, you know, in a way that we had initially, right? I mean, we can think of these feelings that we have. They can feel like black magic. They can feel like sorcery. So I think for me, it's always about returning to your center, right, and returning to your own energy centers and the strength within. You know, I certainly spent some time, and probably all of us have, thinking about, what do I need for my protections? I need this, I need that, I need that, I need that. And, you know, when it comes down to it, Sevan, like you were talking about over the weekend, you know, that really we're strongest when our clothes are off, right? When we don't have all of that external, all of our strength is coming from that internal. So family, of course, knows how to get in there. Our family knows the best how to get into all those energy centers. And so that's where, you know, building that internal strength is so important, and your foundations.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
This next question is did you have something on that, brother?
Yeah, I was going to say, obviously, reaching out to other healers and people that are proficient in the arts, because there's so many layers into this to be able to kind of peel away that type of energy. Yet within ourselves, we have the innate tool within our own design on how to do that as well. Once we're started to be very clear on what energy that we're picking up, and then to start coming from a place where I personally use my hands, my mudras. Each one of these for me is a different. It can be the element, it can be the elemental realm that you're calling in for protection. It can be a guide or an ancestor that you're calling in for protection. It can be like even the fairy realm as well, which is also the element, or being able to kind of use these different layers of support that are there, because no matter the force that's being projected at you, no matter how dark it is, there's equally as much light and support and just evaporation of that work. And from someone that's kind of gone through some swamps and not realized that they're swamps until I was in them, I have figured out some tools and techniques that I do that help me to release that energy from inside my own body, that I don't see it as projected on me by anything, but that's maybe just resonating within me from somewhere that I've picked up, or my consciousness or soul DNA has picked up, which goes back to our ancestors as well. And I've just actually this week launched the free course on that, talking about being able to use your online skills and putting it out there for free, because at the end of the day, these things are to serve humanity. And then from that, hey, if there's a way to kind of take that into something else, and that's what that next journey comes into. But these things are, it comes down to how we internalize it and how we use. Breath is a big one, but again, if it's specifically around occult magic, I've realized that once you start to penetrate that realm and learn more, that realm starts to penetrate you. So, as Sevan's talked about over the years as well, being very discerning and clear about what space that you're going into, because, you open up some books, things can come out of books, you start to say words, things can happen with saying words. So just being really clear and seeking the guidance and mentors of high vibrational beings that don't seek to take anything from you for that energy.
Beautiful. This is going to be actually our last question of today. I see some typing, so maybe there's one more question that's coming through. But I think so much was shared here with the Keymakers. We did initially have a few technical difficulties, but that's fine. We kind of know to lower the bandwidth a bit to make sure that we're able to transmute and transmit. I also wanted to thank everyone that got an opportunity to tune in to today's presentation, that held strong with us as we were making these transitions. And also, I realized that, you know, since we're going to get certain types of questions, it is better for us to come into the next scope of our proficiency, which is seeing how we can assist you from the level of your path, right? And so some homework, if you plan on tuning into the Keymakers next week, it'd probably be a great idea to figure out what your life path is, or excuse me, what your genealogy path is. And in this case, if when this time comes, the instructions are very simple. It's just taking the number of your birthday and the day that you're born on, excuse me, and adding it up and then simplifying it. And next week, what we'll do is when questions are asked, we'll ask you just to give us your number. So it'd be question, your number, and then the question. And we can possibly do a little bit better of the lensing system, get kind of like a lensing system, not necessarily a little bit better, but another perspective of looking at this that may be able to assist you a bit more. The last questions are actually a little bit centered around just a fear-based mindset. So I think that we've just addressed this so many times over the years of being on this channel about getting your foundation together and realizing when your foundation is getting shaky, you know, if you're believing everything that you're hearing around you and you feel like the whole world is falling, this has directly to do with the actual foundation that you're standing on. And a great place to start, we've given so many pointers about how to tackle that through your diet, you know, how to get yourself physically sovereign or spiritually sovereign, like detaching yourself from these different kind of energies and concepts for a while, because you can afford to give yourself a break from all of that. And just realizing, you know, you do have the ultimate power. There is no limit to it. The only rules and boundaries are basically you going through the process of cultivating it. Like all of a sudden, you're not just going to all of a sudden have all your chakras open. I don't advise anyone to do something like that. And because the condition that you'll be in is it's very serious. And a lot of people play with it. They say that they have it, but it's a real thing. You do go through a step-by-step process of coming into an awakening of who you truly are, especially if you're doing that in a responsible way. And so, again, we've given many pointers about how to think about life, but even beyond that, how to know about life. And so that's what we have today. I wanted to say wholeness and balanced vibrations to everyone. We're going to keep moving through this. I trust that next week we'll be in with more tools. We have ambassador training always happening. And the tribe is there always live. If you have questions as an ambassador, we're there for you. And then also we have specialist training that if you feel like, man, maybe I need to get a little bit closer to it, but I'm not ready to make a commitment yet, or I may not have the resources to actually make a commitment, we've made available season 1, season 2, the projector and meditations and quite a few courses from the material inside of ambassador training. And that is absolutely free. You only need to visit the website and actually go to, I believe, the courses page, which you'll catch from the left tab, and then you'll see courses there. Also, for every person that is on the line, if you did want to let the audience know briefly how they can get to your YouTube channel or how they can get in touch with you, that would be awesome. And then we'll go ahead and close it out from there.
Sure, I'll go first. So you can find me on the web at youtube.com/pageflowers, youtube.com/pageflowers. And also you can join Ambassador's Training, Sovereignty Mentorship. You can find me in there too.
Awesome, wholeness. Let's go try. Don't be bashful. Come on now.
Elevator pitch. And so my name's Alistair Hart, and Secret Energy for me has been a massive, I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for this organization, its community, and its wisdom, and talking about what Sevan was talking about. You know, if your old audio podcast recordings are still there from the last 10 years, like even going through them, if you find them, doing that, but getting real time today with Secret Energy is definitely where it's at. And it's even inspired me to create an organization called the Center of Human Enhancement, which is the short version is it's COHE, C-O-H-E. So if you go the COHE, T-H-E, C-O-H-E, and then / I've got a free program up, so it's / 2020. So the Coe.com / 2020.
Awesome. And you're all over the world, Alistair. Every time I look at your Instagram, you're somewhere doing something. Like, it looks like you're on a perpetual Bali trip. Where are you at now? Are you in Australia or?
Mate, if I can get I kind of leaned into not going back through the gauntlet of everything that was happening, but now it's kind of like, I was like, I'll just wait on this island and wait for the surf to come good. But now things are kind of, the lights are, I was like, all right, we'll just see what opens up. I got everything I need. I got Wi-Fi, I got catching fish to eat the food. We'll see how it goes.
All right, brother. Well, we're here for you.
Totally. Thanks, Gabe. Wholeness. Thank you.
Okay, so with me, you can just look up Life the Griot. Griot is spelled Griot. My email is griotlife@gmail.com, but you can also find me at Secret Energy. If you want to look at some of the work that we're doing in this community, check out chessandcommunity.org. chessandcommunity.org.
That's
Thank
awesome.
you so
Y'all
much, Bob.
definitely get an opportunity, especially for those that are working with children, want to work with children, and also have children, that they need to get some inner city youth. Maybe the child's a bit more wayward. He's got his own mind, or she's got her own mind, wants to do it her own way. I've known Life for 25 years now. I think we're going up into that part. And I met him, and he was working with children, and he took me to Washington, D.C. With something that he does every year, or at least several times a year now. And that's getting with the children and bringing them in from different places, letting them see something new, and then letting them learn how to look at life through chess. He has a model that he uses that I feel is very powerful. It's called Think Before You Move. And it's very powerful for helping the inner city youth and what we're going on. And also communities. It's not just the inner city youth, it's communities and community development. So he's a master at doing that. So you can reach out to him. Also, our sister Paige, just to chime in, she does have her YouTube page is always on point. And Paige Flowers is spelled like you see her name on the screen. I noticed that those names popped up. So check out her YouTube also, like and subscribe with her. Also, our sister Joy, Niva, and Wigeby, we're waiting on you, and then we're going to close it out.
So I'm on Instagram. I'm on @ArtOfInnerJoy, and my YouTube channel. I'm just loading up my videos as we speak just now, so that will be soon. Again, it's @ArtOfInnerJoy, as is my website, www.artofinnerjoy.com, and you can always find me on Secret Energy with my family there. Wholeness.
Awesome. Wholeness. Let's go, you two. I mean, all
right, I'll jump in. I'm Joy Vogan, and you can find me on the web at glowtime.net. This is my glowtime.net. And this is also, you can find me on Instagram at glowtime_power tools. In my work, I do individual sessions where working with the chakras to really figure out what's fueling you. And I see potential. And I think in this Keymaker episode today, we have so much potential. And many of the questions I noticed were, as Sevan talked about, based on fear, based on loss, right? We talked a lot about of losing folks and our elders and so forth. And I think that does speak to the climate here. And let us all remember the potential, right? We're in a springtime. We are in a transitional time, and the labor hurts. Labor's hard, right? We're doing a lot of hard work here. And I think the potential and the payoff is huge for every single one of us. So that's what I do in my practice. And I love my Secret Energy family, honing in on this and the great work that we do. So thanks so much, everyone.
Wholeness, everyone. My name is Déesse Wigeby again. You can find me on Facebook. Awaken Self Life is my Facebook channel. Of course, I'm always at Secret Energy. I'm the first one you're gonna run into. Well, Sean and me. You may not want to run into me, but so wholeness, everyone. See you there.
All right, family, wholeness and balanced vibrations. Thank you so much. We'll see you again next Sunday. Obviously, we have stuff on the calendar all next week, and we look forward to continuously bringing you more and more honorings. Look forward to us coming in on Sunday. It's probably going to be 9 of us, and we're going to be looking at all this from the genealogy perspective so we can keep growing. We can get over some of these same question humps and really start getting the applications and solutions in. We'll be brainstorming on that for the next week and making sure that we do our best. And so as you continue to go forward in your day to day, you got your big smile meditation happening, and you know it's Sunday, it's time to start things anew. You know, share what you have with others because your cup runneth over. And until we see each other again, you know, go inside. That's where you'll find us all at. Wholeness and balanced vibrations. Thank you.
Wholeness.
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 Wholeness drive.